How do you do coaching and career development coaching for your team? Welcome everyone to another mock interview with Exponent. Today I'm here with Anusha. Anusha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Anusha Rajan. I used to work as an engineering manager at Yelp and Checker before this, and I'm really happy to be here. So, just a little brief overview of my background. So, I've been a technologist for about 10 years. I started my career at Amazon, worked in India for a few years, and then just did a lateral move coming into Amazon in the US. Stayed for a period of about 5.5 years, always in engineering, always in backend servers, building really scalable software. And then I moved to Yelp. I was interested in working in a pure Silicon Valley company and also interested in a smaller scale than Amazon. So I moved to Yelp and I had a wonderful 4 years at Yelp where I became a software engineering manager. Led the ad delivery team for about a couple of years. This was the team that was responsible for the ad click prediction model and also serving the ads to the traffic on Yelp. And then after Yelp, I moved to a smaller company called Checker, and I joined them when they were about 40 engineers, I think. And I spent about a year at that company leading the data team. And after Checker, I've actually taken a break, and then I decided to go to business school, and I've just finished my business school degree. So quite a ride, and I'm excited to share the lessons I've learned through this journey with you all.
It sounds like you've had a really exciting career, and I can't wait to hear more about it. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're here for an engineering management mock interview, and I wanted to start off with this question for you. How do you do coaching and career development coaching for your team?
That's a question I'm really passionate about because I've had like a ton of experiences as an engineer for about 7 years where I received it on and off, and then 3 years as a manager where I could actually fix some of the things that I wish had been done differently for me. So I'm really passionate about this. And I think career development and coaching is like the number one job of being a manager. It's the highest leverage activity I could do, basically making my team members feel like they belong in an environment that they're able to bring their whole selves to the team, and then also helping them, go wherever they need to go in their career. And so I think this is a very important part. And then it also starts on day one. It's not something that happens sporadically, but it is the essence of how I interact with my team members. And so this is made very easy if there is enough groundwork, laid in the first step. And what I mean by that is to first understand them as a person, as an individual, and then to also have a shared understanding of what performance looks like at that level that they are in, and get to a shared understanding of their goals, what they want to do now in the next few months, and also what they want to do long term. And so I'll dive into each of these. So to start off with, understanding them as a person. So I usually, when there is a new hire on my team, I usually spend the first few weeks just trying to understand how did they come to this particular company? What made them choose this role? What are they looking for in this role? And also to understand a bit about their background, to understand what did they do before this? Why did they go to the specific stream that they took in their undergrad and then masters or whatever? Just to get a sense of who this person is, what are the experiences they've had in their life, because all of that is going to inform how they interact and how they perceive things in this role. So I want to understand as much as possible about what they're looking for, where they come from. And for a more senior engineer, they may actually have a lot of interaction with performance management systems in different companies. They may have certain goals that were not met in previous companies. So I want to understand all of that. What's driving this person and why are they here? And this is something that can go for the first few weeks. And I don't think you need to revisit this. This is a one-time thing, but it helps earn the trust of the team members a lot, especially if they have had bad experiences and they want to talk to you about it and they want to make sure that doesn't happen again. All of these are ways to just earn their respect and trust, and also to share a little bit of about myself. I usually take this time to also explain what is my management philosophy, how long have I been a manager for, and what do I bring to the table, what do I usually prefer to do in one-on-ones, and so on. So it just helps everyone start off on a really strong foot in this setting. So once that's done, the next step is to understand what is the performance that we are looking for in the particular role. So there are two aspects to this. One is the company might have a certain specific system and process that they follow. So I usually take a few weeks to explain to them what the process is for performance evaluation. And the company may have levels. So if there is a document that describes the levels, I usually walk through those documents with the engineer, try to make sure what they understand is also what I understand. And if there are any minor points that need any clarification, we spend some time, talking about it and so on. So basically, people get the information that they need to be able to evaluate their performance. And the other part of this conversation is also to understand what they want to do next. So for someone who is very junior, very young, for instance, in their first job out of college, they may not have a lot of information and they may not have a lot of opinions about the career ladder. So I usually spend very little time on describing career ladders or what to look for, but instead spend a lot more time on very localized stuff. For instance, like the specific projects that they are doing, talking to them about the importance of the project that they are doing, talking to them about like the specific things that they are encountering, how have I solved it in my engineering career, how have others in the team solved it, who they can go to for help and so on. But for a more senior engineer, I want to understand, do they know for sure that they want to be in the engineering side? And then are they looking for more responsibilities? Are they looking for just learning but don't want more responsibilities? Now, there are people have different goals at different stages in life. So this is a place for us to understand their goals, specifically in the context of what the company expects them to do. For some people, they may have spent enough time in engineering but haven't actually done any exploration of things outside of engineering. And so they may have some long-term goals that they're not sure how to hit. For instance, wanting to try product, but not having enough confidence to see whether they have the right skills and so on. So this leads us to, understanding specifically this person's journey about where they want to be. And that provides a framework for us to understand what to expect in the next 3 months, what to expect in the next 6 months, and how I'm going to evaluate the performance. And so once this understanding in place, the actual task of feedback and coaching is very easy because that's very operational. So once the strategic parts are done, the operational part is I meet with them regularly for one-on-ones every week, and I usually talk about like what's happening in the project and also help them reflect on what's been happening. If a project has just completed, it's a great time to run a retrospective on the project and like look for feedback from like other stakeholders, product managers, other engineers, platform teams, and so on, and to bring all of that to the table and help the team reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, and then to follow up in one-on-ones with each individual to see, do they see any things that they liked, do they see any things that they didn't like, and also to then bring up the things that we had discussed about how performance is to be evaluated, and to see what skills did they think they exhibited a lot more, what skills did they enjoy exhibiting, what skills did they not want to do but still did a great job in, and also what things they did not do a good job in. And so for each of them, try to understand what makes this person tick. For instance, a product manager might be someone who demonstrates a lot more comfortability with ambiguity. And if someone's already doing that and wants to become a product manager, this is a great place to reinforce that to them. Hey, you have actually demonstrated the skill to a large extent here, and this is something you should consider. Or for some others, it may be means to getting more responsibility in terms of a promotion. And so for them, it may be very much a conversation around, here are 5 or 10 different things you exhibited. Here's what I would want to see more of in the next project that we are working on. And if the groundwork has been laid well, this becomes much more of a conversation and not so much a judgment or a scorecard, but instead people are able to reflect for themselves and own their performance.
Got it.
So this is how I usually do it.
Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit on the career development piece of this and the plan that you come up with each engineer that you work with. What are some quick examples that you can give me of opportunities that you've presented engineers that you've worked with in the past in order to further specific goals that they've laid out with you?
Yeah. So I think I would look at an engineer's career path in like as there being a three parts to being an engineering engineer. So the first is when they are just starting out in their career, a junior engineer. Then there is the senior engineer who I would want to actually lead projects and participate much more at the team level. And then at the other end is the principal engineer kind of a person who's like starting to outgrow the team, but instead going to influence an entire organization of engineers, for instance. So to start off with, in the first level, which is the junior engineer, they're just getting their feet wet. So for them, a lot more of the career development happens in the form of giving them exposure to different parts of the system. and over a 2-year period, maybe helping them grow into an owner for one particular part of the system that my team is managing. I used to work a lot more in the infrastructure platform kind of team. So my management philosophy is also, coming out of working in those teams. So for a junior engineer, after they've had exposure to how a project is run on this particular team, maybe there's an opportunity to discuss, are there specific areas that they want to become a technical expert in? For instance, someone might say, I want to learn all about NoSQL databases, for instance. So finding projects for them where they can, work on more systems, evaluate more tools that offer a NoSQL capability, and then helping them become a technical expert through things like sharing their lessons that they've learned in team lunches, then providing an opportunity for them to share those lessons either in the form of a written document, blog post, or something like that with the outside world, outside of the team, and slowly helping them start to speak up more in design meetings and roadmaps and things like that to articulate what they have learned. I think that is what I would look for in a junior engineer. But for a more senior engineer, I would want to create some opportunities around, grooming them for the roadmap meetings, for instance. I've always done a roadmap brainstorm session with the team and the product manager every 3 to 6 months, depending on the quarterly goals. And so for these sessions, for a senior engineer, I would actually have 1 or 2 one-on-ones with them to understand, are there specific tech debt items or larger re-architecture projects that we need to do? And for them to then bring that to the table in those roadmap sessions, maybe even help them run those roadmap sessions so that they start to demonstrate an alignment with the company's goals, with the product manager's goals, and also start learning trade-offs between when to tackle infrastructure problems versus when to do features for the product that we're working on. And so a lot more ownership of the team's goals as such without the people management aspect. But once they do this, I think a couple of things that I can do at this level is also to start bringing up their name with my own managers. So my managers, senior managers or directors would have org level goals or 2-year, 3-year roadmap for the org in terms of what needs to happen that they are thinking about, or maybe some very ambiguous problems that are not yet clear as to when to prioritize or what to do even. So these are some goals that I will start discussing with my own managers and start bringing to one-on-one discussions with these senior engineers, just to help them get to the next level, which is looking around the corner for what's coming up. Another thing I could do is find conferences that are more aligned with what my team is doing, and then help these engineers go to those conferences, but come back with ideas as to what our team should be doing differently, help them share that knowledge with the rest of the company even. And so slowly help them start to think a little bit more outside of the team at the org. And at this point, it may also be very natural for a person to exit the team and move into much more of a platform team, or they move into a new team, which requires that level of dealing with ambiguity that they have demonstrated and so on. So all of these are, it's good for the team to sort of change and evolve, and for people to leave the team to stay within the company, but for an opportunity that is helping them grow. So I see that as a very natural evolution. And so that is something I can encourage. A couple of other things I can do are also to use my own social capital. So work with my peers, discuss what's happening, stay in touch with what changes are they looking at in terms of the tools, in terms of the software that we use, or in terms of what product features are coming up, and then to figure out, is there a cross-functional team here that an engineer from my team can participate in? Or someone in my team use this technology, and then can they be lent to this team for a few months to help them implement or something? So all of these are ways to sort of help the engineers grow, start to build exposure, and then build a sense for themselves as to where they want to be, and then help them proceed.
Okay. How would you deal with a situation where an engineer's growth path is, according to them, something where the end goal is outside of engineering? So if an engineer comes to you, they still have their responsibility to perform at whatever level of engineer that they are right now, but their ultimate goal is to maybe move into product management or content strategist or designer or something that is outside of engineering.
Yeah. Sure. So the first thing is to understand why they want to do it, and to make sure that they've done the prior research to know that that's really what they want, because we don't want to give that responsibility to a person and then for them to realize 3 months later that the job is very different from what they thought it would be. So first is to deal with it at a very local level in just one-on-ones, try to understand why they came to that conclusion. Do they not see any similar roles which require the same skills within engineering? In terms of just being a software engineer or senior software engineer, and sometimes it is the conversation ends at this point. They have some ideas that were not rooted in reality, but mostly people have done some research or learned about something, and so the next step is to understand how much work they have really done in terms of grooming themselves for that role. And so for to be a product manager, for instance, a lot of it relates to understanding the business that we are in. And so engineers typically do not have a lot more exposure to like the business goals as to why, how this business came about and what's important and so on. So for them, the first step would be to start helping them network with other product managers to understand what are the different business goals that we are trying to align and why are those business goals important. For instance, in one of my previous companies, it was a public company, and so we would listen to earnings calls a few times to understand how was the business being pitched to external investors. And as a product manager, I think you are responsible for owning the business parts of it. So it is important that you understand the business that the company is in, and then also then look at what is our team doing in terms of contributing to that business. And so once they meet with a few product managers, they start to develop this exposure around what the job actually involves. Then comes the conversation around what are the skill sets that they are currently demonstrating, where they're already strong in, and also what skill sets they feel like they have not demonstrated. To feed this discussion, I would also want to talk to whoever can potentially help this person switch over into a product role. Maybe it's the VP of product for me, or maybe it's a director of product who's looking for a person and knows this person and thinks this person would be a great fit. So in that case, try to identify some areas of feedback from that person, try to identify a path and a timeline for this person to transition over, or even before that, even maybe a project where this person can be part product manager and be mentored by someone. So those things will take 3-4 quarters for it to actually happen. And you keep the person engaged in terms of talking to them about this particular role. You help them not slip in the other responsibilities as an engineer, but instead, as long as they are learning, as long as they see a specific timeline and are being put in touch with the right people, I think this is a way in which you can help them move out of the team into a role where they might.
Okay, and I have one last question for you. Let's talk a little bit about feedback. How do you generally give feedback, and what strategies have worked best for you?
So I typically meet my engineers for a weekly one-on-one session, and at least if they're senior enough and if they really don't want to meet on a weekly basis, it's been every fortnight, but not. I meet them at least once in that time frame. And specifically in terms of giving feedback, I try to point out things that they're doing well and things that they could potentially improve. But that is usually timed around the same time as a project meeting or a project coming to an end and so on, when these things are also very obvious to the person also. And depending on the feedback that I give, it may be helpful to follow up with an email recording like the things that they are doing well and then the things that they could potentially improve in the next project. I think the goal is to make it seem like they are on a journey and we are supporting them on the journey, rather than, like I said before, it being a scorecard or a judgment. As part of offering the feedback, constructive feedback especially, is also to talk about how or what strategies could help them fix that particular area. And one thing is obvious here is also to understand if they want to fix that. But because we have done the discussion around who they are and what they are trying to aim for, and there is a shared understanding of what they need to work on, I hope that's taken care of already in those conversations. And outside of this, I think both companies that I worked at had a performance management system where people had to submit a self reflection and the manager had to submit a review on a quarterly basis or on a yearly basis. So that is a great place for me to put down in writing for sure that these are the 3 things that they're doing really well, and these are 1 or 2 things that are the most important things for them to fix in the coming months. And having that written record also helps clear any sort of disagreements or any sort of misunderstanding between the 2 people. That said, I think there are definitely cases where people either find it very hard to accept feedback because there is a very fixed mindset. And so the opportunity there is to help them get into the habit of having a growth mindset and get into the habit of knowing that this is not a judgment, but instead it just takes time for everyone to develop this. And on top of it, again, you could potentially meet someone who is just not going to listen to any feedback. So you want to understand, do they have a valid reason for why they are not accepting this feedback? Did I make a mistake? Did I, is this even important enough for me to continue to persist in bringing this feedback up? But if it doesn't affect their career goals, then maybe if they don't want to hear it, it's okay to table this conversation or even drop this altogether. But if something is consistently an issue and the person refuses to hear the feedback, then the conversation becomes more about, are they demonstrating such a difficult behavior with others in other settings? Are they, and potentially it can lead to the question of, are they a good fit in the culture of the company that we are in?
Got it. Thank you so much, Anusha. This was extremely enlightening. I really enjoyed hearing your answers. I can give you a little bit of feedback on the answers that you gave just now. I think overall, across the 3-4 questions I think I asked you, the structure was very apparent in the answers that you were giving. I really liked that you would kind of give an outline of what you were going to give as the content of your answer for each one. And that really helps to to set the expectations for the interviewer, basically, to understand high level, what are you going to talk about? Do you have your bases covered overall for the different nuances in this question, and how you're going to tackle those nuances as you get into the meat of the answer. It was very clear to me through your questions, through your answers, that you have empathy for the people who you are managing, which is extremely important for the interviewer to see in any engineering management interview. You know better than me that the primary goal is for you to be able to connect with the people that you're managing and help them through their careers. So showing empathy is a massive part of that. There was a huge awareness of the different strategies that you're going to have to employ based on the seniority of the different engineers. And that, I think, is something that not many people really highlight in their answers in EM interviews. And I think it's a great takeaway for people who are watching this video. Remember that people who you're managing are not all going to be from the same level. They're not all going to have the same career goals. They don't even have the same motivations. Some of them are very motivated by the work that they're doing at the company, and some are motivated by external factors. So it's very important for the engineering manager to assess that, understand it, and respond to it, which I think you demonstrated in your answers, or the capacity to do that, rather, in your answers. You called out specific actions that you would do, like sending emails for feedback, which I think is also really important to do, just to give the interviewer a sense that you know what you're talking about, and you know, not just on an abstract level, you know exactly what concrete steps you would need to take in order to achieve the effect that you were talking about in your answers. So well done, and I think this was fantastic, and good luck on the rest of your interviews.